Greetings, fellow scholars of the livestream. I'm Kutakuma from the Cosmo Observatory, and today we are continuing the analysis of all new elements pertaining to Cloud and Sephiroth in the Final Fantasy VII Remake first installment. But before we do, huge shout out to our new patrons, newcomer Gainhart and returning scholar Zenrir. Thank you guys so much for your support. We highly recommend that you watch all the previous parts visible on screen before continuing, just so you can receive the full context. You can find the continuously growing playlist in the info card up there. Still here? Fantastic! Strap in and enjoy the next segment of our journey. Caution, spoilers ahead. When the group approaches Jenova's tank in the drum, Sephiroth isn't present yet. Barrett asks what that thing is, and Aerith answers with
Jenova,
which triggers a slew of flashbacks and painful memories in Cloud's mind. The whole segment contains several deviations from the original. Instead of taking the elevator and being captured, they seek refuge in Aerith's childhood chamber. Jenova is now held in the center of a multi-storied research facility instead of a small dome on floor 67. And the whole group reaches Jenova's tank instead of only Cloud, Tifa, and Barrett. All of those deviations, plus Cloud's episode earlier, made his mind more fragile, which then reacts to Aerith mentioning Jenova's name, and all the memories come flooding in. Let's go through those one by one. First, he sees a close-up on one of Sephiroth's alien cat eyes, followed by him standing in front of Jenova's tank in the drum, just like he saw Sephiroth standing in Jenova's chamber in the Nibelheim reactor. However, Sephiroth is not standing at that spot yet, so it stands to reason that Cloud sees several seconds into the future as a vision, as we see almost the same image when he becomes visible to Tifa. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Right after seeing Sephiroth from behind, both of his eyes appear for a fraction of a second. Then, Sephiroth slowly floats down from above towards the bridge. At first glance, it seems to be number 49 appearing as Sephiroth in front of the group. However, the others can't see him yet. But what's the explanation? In Crisis Core, Zack falls to a lower bridge after clashing with Sephiroth in Jenova's chamber in the Nibelheim reactor. Right after, Sephiroth floats down to join Zack in a very similar fashion. However, Cloud never witnessed Zack's battle against Sephiroth as he comes running in after Zack's defeat. Is it just a coincidence? A mere throwback? Or something more? Let's put a pin in it for now and finish up with Cloud's flashbacks. The next few flashes show Sephiroth's sword and him standing in front of Jenova's tank in the Nibelheim reactor 5 years ago, repeating the same line we heard earlier during Cloud's reunion walk towards the elevator.
Mother, together we will reclaim our world. Mother, together we will reclaim our world.
Those flashes with Sephiroth's sword are quite interesting. We can barely recognize the blurry surroundings, but some frames with a higher brightness show a few details which allow us to take a guess on the location. The brighter part, right beside Sephiroth's hair in the first one, resembles the brown stripe on his other side in the second shot, where we see his whole blade, legs, and metal rings around his boots. Where could this be? It kinda looks like a door frame with pipes next to it. Our best guess is that it's the entrance to Jenova's chamber in the Nibelheim reactor right after he cuts down Tifa. While the original background render does not have pipes right next to the door frame, we can see two of those strange lines going off of it in the first, less detailed flashback image. This being the moment after he cuts down Tifa also ties into the following flashes, which are excerpts from the same flashback of Tifa seen in Chapter 7, where she's mourning over her father and picking up Sephiroth's Masamune blade, the reason why she was cut down by him in the first place. This is underlined by another brief flash of Sephiroth's evil face right when Tifa picks up the Masamune. In short, the word Jenova triggered Cloud's painful memory of Tifa being struck down in front of Jenova's chamber, a very similar place compared to where they're standing right now. The scene then transitions to Tifa approaching Cloud, fittingly bridging Cloud's flashback to reality. Now it gets interesting. As mentioned before, Sephiroth is not physically standing on the bridge before Tifa touches Cloud. But right after touching him, she looks ahead and sees Sephiroth standing where Cloud just saw him before. She slightly recoils, not believing her eyes, and then fear overcomes her. Red 13 also immediately switches into his attack stance, as he knows what that means through the knowledge he received from Aerith earlier. For more information about that, please check out our 2-hour analysis about Aerith's secret. Aerith also gets angry at the sight of Sephiroth. He's the blight of this planet, the reason why she's intervening in the planet's memories, and now he appears at a point where he wasn't supposed to. After asking,
"Tell me, is it really you?"
Cloud suffers from another memory glitch, but this time, it's a vision from the future. Cloud grabs his left upper arm, the same spot he bears the geostigma marks in Advent Children. Since Jenova wants Cloud to take part in the reunion, its influence over the black-robed man underneath the Sephiroth image we see here tells Cloud to embrace and not deny Sephiroth.
Don't deny me. Embrace me.
In the Japanese version, those two phrases are a bit different. He instead tells Cloud that he's pathetic and should just accept it, as in his influence over Cloud and the reunion. While this could be an indication of this Sephiroth being puppeteered by his future self, we believe that the latter is not involved in the whole Shinra building segment at all, but more on that later. Then, Cloud finally snaps under the pressure of Sephiroth and all the bad memories from the past and future and blindly charges the black-robed man posing as Sephiroth, presumably number 2. Why number 2? Well, first off, the Ultimania flat out tells us that this Sephiroth here is a black-robed man. It also tells us that the Sephiroth on floor 70, who walks past a terrified Palmer, is number 49. It's also number 49 who poses as Jenova Dreamweaver, and then number 2 is taken over who carries Jenova to the top and jumps off the building. Carrying Jenova away from its tank, as seen on the surveillance screen after we finish the drum, would therefore fit the role of number 2. It's also not future Sephiroth connecting to Cloud here, as he would be way chattier and still invisible to the others, but more on that later. Just to be clear, we're not dealing with a hallucination here. Sephiroth cuts off the bridge, and Cloud falls down a few stories, just like the others, who we can briefly see sliding down the falling bridge in the background and even hear Aerith scream. On the other hand, it's also possible that we only meet number 2 after beating Jenova in battle, and number 49 is responsible for all other Sephiroth appearances before that. After all, Cloud activates number 49 in Chapter 3, while number 2's activation happens in Chapter 8, around 2.5 days later. It's therefore possible that number 2 doesn't arrive before we beat Jenova. Anyway, why were the group only able to see a physical representation of Sephiroth after Tifa touches Cloud? To our knowledge, this can only be explained by this game's story happening in the livestream's memories. It's the only way a physical person can appear in the blink of an eye out of nowhere in front of anyone other than Cloud and destroy a physical object. It seems like both black-robed men, number 2 here and number 49 on floor 70, were summoned up here by Cloud himself. But how? Through the connection established during their meetings and touch in chapters 3 and 8. Cloud's intense flashbacks must have called them here by the power of Jenova cells and the reunion. Number 49 on floor 70, right after the Cosmo's theater presentation, and number 2 right here. We highly doubt that both were able to lurch up here by themselves undetected, through security in trains, at the Shinra building's entrances, and within it, including stairs and elevators, plus doors requiring key cards. However, as we'll see later, Jenova's abilities apparently include hiding a physical object from the sight of those around it. It's possible that this is what happens here as well, and touching Cloud lifted the spell, so to speak. This cutscene ends with another reunion line by Sephiroth, which made its debut in the theme song trailer in January 2020.
A touching reunion.
Again, he talks about Jenova's reunion. This meeting is the third and last time Cloud has a connection to a black-robed man before the reunion begins, the moment when Jenova leaves its tank to start the journey. With number 49 in Chapter 3, it happened without words, but as a Black Cloak Sephiroth encounter. With number 2 in Chapter 8, the image of Sephiroth tells Cloud that their reunion is nothing to fear, which almost made Cloud take part in it, hadn't it been for Aerith's touch. And here, Sephiroth tells Cloud to embrace him and implies the actual beginning of the reunion during. However, Sephiroth can't let Cloud and the others reach Jenova. He needs to make sure that Jenova starts the journey to complete the reunion. The changed circumstances have apparently become a threat to it. One last thing. Doesn't the clash between Cloud and Sephiroth and Cloud's fall into the abyss, plus dropping the Buster Sword, remind you of something? And it's even for the same reason, to get Jenova out of its tank in peace. A bit later, also in Crisis Core, Cloud charges Sephiroth in rage, clashes with him, and gets thrown away as well, with the Buster Sword landing right beside him, just like in the remake. Hojo has of course watched all of this unfold from his command center and is happy about his hypothesis being proven correct. But what hypothesis? Hojo's main research encompasses Jenova and the reunion hypothesis, which proposes that all of Jenova's cells will eventually try to reunite into a single organism. He also tries to create more Sephiroths, which led him to experiment on and inject dozens of members of the military, infantry and soldiers alike, with Jenova cells, tattooed all of them with a number, and thus the black-robed figures were created. 2 of them are now in the building, with one of them having reached Jenova and defending it from the others. Hojo knows that Sephiroth died 5 years ago. It's the reason why he found so much interest in Cloud, a mere infantryman responsible for the death of the greatest soldier ever. Sephiroth wandering these halls, going for Jenova, and easily defending it from other intruders proves both aspects of his research. People injected with Jenova cells, who are too weak to resist its effects, congregate around Jenova and are able to turn into a Sephiroth clone with similar capabilities. Even after being carried away by the Whispers, which presumably remove those memories provoking fate-altering events, Hojo might still remember that he experimented on Cloud 5 years ago, and why. For a black-robed Sephiroth clone, defeating the one who defeated the real Sephiroth certainly constitutes as a very positive development, especially since he regards Cloud as a failed experiment. But Hojo is looking at Cloud while he says that, so he must be talking about him. Maybe. But Hojo can just as well be talking about the Sephiroth clone and consider Cloud's current situation as part of the proof of his hypothesis. Hojo hopes that he, Cloud or the Sephiroth clone, continues not to disappoint, insinuating that disappointment happened in the past but not anymore, and that it should stay this way. Yes, this was the case with Cloud, as he failed as a Sephiroth clone. His victory over Sephiroth made Hojo curious, but Cloud devolved into a blubbering mess. However, Cloud clashing with Sephiroth and being tossed into the abyss doesn't seem to prove any hypothesis about a worthy Sephiroth clone or even the reunion. He also doesn't seem to care about Cloud at all for the rest of his screen time in this game, but does observe Sephiroth and Jenova with high interest, as we see later. If not Cloud, then how and when did Hojo's black-robed subjects disappoint him in the past? He experimented on survivors from the Nibelheim incident and turned them into black-robed figures with tattoos. However, they never left Nibelheim, even after Shinra moved Jenova to Midgar. From the story contained within the World Preview book, we know about the existence of other black-robed people living in Midgar who regularly assemble in Sector 7's train graveyard to creep around and look up to Jenova's location in the Shinra building. Now, at least number 2 and 49, made it into the building somehow, proving Hojo's reunion hypothesis, at least partially. After we beat the entirety of the drum, we see Sephiroth again, briefly on one of Hojo's monitors. He's carrying Jenova on his arms, walking towards the elevator leading to floor 69, the one full of purple goo. As mentioned before, it seems like he needed the time to free Jenova and bring it to the rooftop safely. But here's the real question. How did it take Sephiroth just as long to cut Jenova loose as it took our party to get through the trials in the drum? It looks like Sephiroth cut through everything with a single slice of his sharp blade to free Jenova. On the other hand, the hoses holding Jenova's headpiece suspended in the air are still intact. Maybe Sephiroth had to carefully carve out and detach everything piece by piece so as to not accidentally damage Jenova's body? It's also very strange that nobody in our party mentioned Sephiroth or Jenova in any way after the destruction of the bridge, as if they lost their memory of what happened. Only Tifa asks Aerith about Cloud's mental state, but neither of them mentions Sephiroth. When they reach the destroyed tank again, Tifa drops a remark.
We're back. Again.
However, after seeing the destruction instead of Jenova and its tank, they act as if they have no clue as to who could have done this.
What the hell's going on?
Who would?
We may find out soon.
Was Sephiroth cutting off the bridge like butter not enough of a hint for y'all? Oh. Yet another case of inexplicable mass oblivion. Upon reaching the president's office, they finally remember that Sephiroth is here. At least, Tifa does.
Where the hell is that bastard hiding?
And Sephiroth?
Still, that alone isn't enough as a justifiable response to Sephiroth, especially for Cloud and Tifa. Though we understand that Aerith and Red 13 have to hold back on purpose, and Barrett just doesn't care enough. Unfortunately, there's no other follow-up whatsoever. We therefore preliminarily conclude that this is due to cut content and time constraints, with the drum as its biggest victim. The strongest indicator for this is the brief dialogue before using the elevator to floor 69. Aerith and Red 13 warn the player that this is the point of no return, and any unfinished business has to be taken care of now by using the previous elevator to reach the central terminal again. As if there was more planned to do in the drum. But as it is designed now, there is no need at all to return whatsoever unless you ignored all chests and materia lying visibly in our way, besides a few hidden ones. And those alone don't warrant such a stern warning, as this whole game is littered with hidden treasure and quest rewards, and the only warnings you get are single questions, whether to keep roaming around or not, to prevent you from accidentally triggering the next point of no return, as we can see in chapters 3, 8, and 14, this game's side quest hubs. To be fair, the game will provide you with a warning message if you don't pick up the optional materia treasure in Chapter 9's Collapsed Expressway, though in this case, it's just a message and not an in-lore conversation. And then there's Chapter Select after beating the game if you still want to collect everything. Plus, Episode Intermission's drum equivalent, the Materia Production Facility, doesn't provide you with such a warning. That's why we think it's entirely possible that the developers had to cut out scenes which would have referenced Sephiroth and the event on the now broken bridge, along with presumably other optional stuff. Anyway, let's return to the president's office. Contrary to the original scene, the president is nowhere to be seen. However, there's this hole in the window with a broken railing just outside. We can even see the president hanging from the security grate and calling out for help.
Help me!
It seems like someone chucked the president through the window and over the edge of the building, but wasn't entirely successful or didn't care enough. Outside, a new scene begins in which Barrett threatens and confronts the president, helps him to safety, only to try and clear Avalanche's name and make the president admit the company's crimes towards the planet. However, he's too careless and lets the president grab the golden gun, reclaiming control of the situation. Seriously, Barrett? You have a freaking Gatling gun for an arm! Use it! Oh my god, unbelievable. Anyway, just before President Shinra manages to discharge his weapon, Sephiroth appears out of nowhere and stabs the president in the back, bringing the story back on course. But, unlike the original version, Barrett and the others watch him do it. Feeling robbed of the opportunity to make things right, Barrett snaps and charges towards Sephiroth. Bad move. The Whispers rush in and try to prevent their clash, but Sephiroth doesn't care, and even uses the Whisper's essence to teleport straight into Barrett's face and stab him too. A shock for everyone involved, the player included. Can you believe they spoiled the scene in the launch trailer? An atrocious travesty! Tifa, Red 13, and Aerith run towards Barrett, shocked of what just transpired. Cloud, on the other hand, freezes in place, completely in denial it seems, and unable to move, especially with that crazy, gleeful grin on Sephiroth's face, reveling in giving Cloud despair. Of course, Barrett won't die here, as fate has other plans, and instructs one of the Whispers to resurrect him. The other Whispers try to contain Sephiroth by swirling around him, but it's no use, as he scares them away with a single swipe of his Mazamune, as if they were mere annoying insects. I know, this was quite a lot of exposition, but all of it is important for our attempt to find out what's going on here. It's also important to note that we're still dealing with a black-robed Sephiroth copy here, one controlled by the Reunion and Jenova, who in turn is influenced and later completely controlled by Northern Crater Sephiroth. Whenever future Sephiroth appears, he talks in a mysterious and superior manner. When the original Sephiroth appears, he either remains silent or talks about the Reunion. He also never addresses Cloud by name. Future Sephiroth, however, keeps addressing Cloud by name and points out specific memories of them. Now, why didn't Sephiroth kill the president and leave right away like he did in the original? He reached the office before the others after all. What's also strange is that the purple trail of alien goo just stops at the entrance to the office. To be fair, the trail of blood is also missing on floor 70 in the original. We assume that Jenova visibly, fully turned into Sephiroth at that point, which is why Palmer saw Sephiroth kill the president and not Jenova. However, this is not the case in Remake, as we will see later. It's possible that the Trail of Goo's only purpose is to lead the party to the president's office. While not germane to this analysis, we do need to address the elephant in the room, the missing blood. We think it's a mixture between keeping the rating low and the changed circumstances. In the original, Genova's body escaped on its own after being activated by Cloud's proximity, leaving death and destruction in its wake due to being mainly instinctual, hence the dead bodies and the claw marks on the walls. The red blood is most likely a combination of hurt Jenova flesh from breaking out and the murdered employees who were unlucky enough to stand in its way, President Shinra included. In Remake, Jenova uses the body of either number 2 or 49 to break itself free and carry it into President Shinra's office. Either that, or Cloud's stronger memories of Sephiroth allows him to take control earlier. Due to the absence of employees on the top floors, nobody gets hurt, and the purple goo is most likely Jenova's alien blood from wounds inflicted by Sephiroth, ripping it away from pipes and hoses and removing other cumbersome attachments barring its wounds. There's also another element most likely caused by a lower rating, and that's the gray effect emanating from President Shinra's and Barrett's stab wounds. However, if it were just for the rating, they could have merely left out the blood, like when Sephiroth prepares himself an Aerith kebab in the original. So why use this strange effect? Maybe because it looks very similar to the one the Whispers leave behind. Both the smoke and the particles, which look very similar to most appearances in cutscenes, like in Chapter 2. Okay, back on topic. What caused Jenova's escape to change? Simple, the earlier confrontation with Sephiroth. In the original, Jenova didn't even recognize Cloud until sometime after the cargo ship. Here, Sephiroth's early appearance to Cloud, activating number 2 and 49 through proximity afterwards, plus flashbacks and visions, result in this meeting to happen much earlier. While Sephiroth might not remember Cloud per se, he definitely feels the Jenova cells in Cloud, and thus his capacity to join the reunion due to his weak mind. Although, thanks to Cloud's memories of Sephiroth being much stronger now, it's also possible that the original Sephiroth already remembers a few smidges of who Cloud really is. This might explain the President's helpless position. Sephiroth might have been the one preparing the situation, and watches the scene unfold from the shadows, waiting for Barrett to kill the President. If Barrett turned into a killer, it would drive a deep wedge into the group and sow despair, an advantageous situation for Sephiroth's plan. The weaker the party's friendship, the easier to separate them from Cloud. However, Barrett decides to let the President live after the girls plead him to stop. This leads Sephiroth to do the job himself. Barrett being killed by the President would only divert their anger from Sephiroth over to the President, which is not what Sephiroth wants. However, killing Barrett didn't seem to have been Sephiroth's plan. It was Barrett's attempt for retaliation which prompted Sephiroth to act. Take note of the focus of his eyes just before the Whispers barge in. It seems that this sudden change of plans calls the Whispers to rush in and protect Barrett from Sephiroth. Unfortunately, Sephiroth seems to have a few additional abilities at his disposal, like using Whisper Essence to teleport. Essence, which might contain more Jenova than meets the eye. It's also possible that he possesses this additional ability because of the nature of this location, the memories within the livestream, as established in Game Analysis episode 24. We can even see the green glitch effect, the same one used during Cloud's memory glitches and Sephiroth's freezing of Aerith in Chapter 2. Green, a color representing Mako, the livestream, and memories. What about Sephiroth's invisibility before he suddenly appears? Memory manipulation and illusions have been Jenova's main abilities since the original, so he could have just made use of those, just like shapeshifting, as we'll see in the next segment. But wait, there exists another possibility of why President Shinra is not sitting on his throne. Remember Avalanche HQ's plan to flush out the president? The bomb went off before our party had to go through the trials in the drum. Avalanche HQ's plan, in cooperation with the old guard we saw in Chapter 4, was most likely to have the president stand on the helipad outside, being presented to Rufus on a silver platter. Villains usually love to reveal everything to their victims before they dispose of them. Rufus might have wanted to do just that and then give the order to execute his father. However, Sephiroth robbed him of this golden opportunity, here and in the original game. But why then is nobody around when we enter the president's office? And why is President Shinra dangling from the safety grate around the helipad? The Avalanche helicopter coming our way is doing so a second time. The same one has been there before already, most likely to evacuate friendlies after accomplishing their mission or flushing out the president. It's possible that they did confront the president, but were interrupted by Sephiroth and had to escape. President Shinra was probably tossed out by somebody, or even Sephiroth himself by accident during the commotion, and left hanging to be found and finished off by Rufus later. Alright, back to Sephiroth and Jenova. Sephiroth turns around to look gleefully at the distraught party, and then it happens. He's engulfed in blue-purple smoke and turns into Jenova Dreamweaver, or Jenova Beat in Japanese, or Jenova Pulse in German. This fits right into the original game's naming convention, where we have birth, life, death, and synthesis. Pulse is the first sign of life before birth. Some people predicted Jenova conception, but Viz prefers Pulse. The English variant, Dreamweaver, while inaccurate, still fits very well, as it puts an impeccable mass illusion on display. In addition to its transformation, the surroundings also change and turn into its disgusting lair. During this transition, we see smoke being emitted from Sephiroth, which passes through Cloud and the others. This smoke seems to be responsible for this illusion, the surroundings, and Jenova itself. Now, pay attention to the shapes beyond the battlefield, the green cuboid pillars. Where have we seen those before? The ground on which we fight also shows a lot of squares, similar to Jenova Synthesis's battle arena. This makes sense, as Jenova's head is currently residing in the center of the northern crater where the original's final battles happen. After the battle, it's revealed that we've been fighting number 49 all along. Number 49, who had taken on the looks of Sephiroth thanks to the effects of Jenova cells and Sephiroth's influence. Now, it's going to become a bit more confusing, so please bear with me. The purple smoke disappears, number 49 falls to the ground, dies, and disappears. However, there are no green lifestream particles seen after we kill enemies. Instead, there's just a bit of purple smoke. We assume that this is due to Jenova's complete corruption of the black-robed people. Thus, they either return to the negative lifestream, the one unusable for recycling spirit energy, or simply disappear forever. At the same time, Jenova's body, which was hidden from our eyes, appears again, and with it, the second Sephiroth. Wait, what now? This second Sephiroth, who also appears out of nowhere, picks up Jenova's body and disappears again. It seems he teleports outside, according to Cloud's befuddled reaction. He then slowly floats upwards to the rooftop. Floating is nothing new, as we can see this ability in the original on multiple occasions. In the cargo ship, in the Shinra Mansion Library, at the Temple of the Ancients, and at the altar in the Forgotten Capital. However, it was Jenova's shape-shifted body in those cases, while we're dealing with yet another black-robed man here. Maybe carrying Jenova's body grants temporary abilities to those containing its cells? Anyway, Cloud tries to follow Sephiroth to the top, but is blocked off by Whispers who need to make sure that Jenova can escape unencumbered. But that's not the important part of this scene. First, we see this brief green glitch effect when Sephiroth looks towards and acknowledges Cloud. This effect usually accompanies suppression, alteration, or hurtful recollection of memories. It's interesting that this glitch happens just after Cloud calls out Sephiroth's name. Maybe it jogs some more of Sephiroth's memories of Cloud? He does crack a smile after all.
Sephiroth!
Unless future Sephiroth calls in, hence the smile, and orders the Whispers to get Cloud off his neck. Anyway, shortly after, the veil of Sephiroth's apparition is lifted, also accompanied by a green memory glitch effect, and the illusion turning number 2 into Cloud's nemesis fades away. The following observation might just be a mistake, but for a few frames before one of the Whispers covers the view, we can see both Sephiroth's and number 2's models overlapping. Without being hindered by Cloud, number 2 lets himself fall off the building, accompanied by 3 Whispers, presumably the same ones who directed Cloud towards number 2 and now ensure a safe escape for Jenova. But why help Cloud chase after Sephiroth and then keep him from reaching his nemesis? This is the main piece of evidence pointing to future Sephiroth swiftly calling in to stop Cloud from reaching number 2. It's notable that number 2 and Cloud share a brief glance as the scene slows down to show the face underneath the black hood. We're aware of a theory which links number 2 to Zack, but since any conversation about it would need its own video, we'll just say that Viz does not subscribe to this theory. Instead, we believe that this non-verbal exchange between Cloud and number 2 only underlines their similarities. Both possess Jenova cells and are being used as disposable puppets by Jenova and Sephiroth. And with that, we conclude this segment of the journey through Cloud's and Sephiroth's mysteries. Thank you so much for watching! If you liked this video, please give us a thumbs up and make sure to subscribe and select all notifications to be immediately notified when the next part of this analysis releases. Have you noticed anything we didn't? Disagree on some points or have any other feedback for us? Please let us know in the comments, or better yet, check out our Discord server and right away in the Observatory channel. We also release additional content on Twitter, like Viz's infamous CCO gems, so follow us there as well if you're so inclined. Furthermore, huge thanks to all our Patreon and Subscribestar supporters. Your contribution is invaluable. You guys are the best. Stay safe and take care. Kutakuma, signing off.